Comic books are no stranger to time travel stories, but this story is all about time travel. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell. I'm Rob the host, and this is another look deep into what makes a story, who believes that every story has merit. And tonight's episode is in review, Legends of Tomorrow. For those of you that don't know, it's one of a few shows that I cover that are dealing all with time travel. The main character for season 1 was Rip Hunter, although as we get into this we'll see he was mostly a supporting cast member. It did cross over with JSA stuff in the entire Berlantiverse for the invasion, and as such, that stuff it makes it a little hard to cover as just a standalone story. But to be perfectly honest, I think this was a good one. I'm giving it an Electrum. I'm giving it that, in general, this is probably one of the better superhero shows out there. The fact that I named an entire negative of the superhero genre based on this show should tell you that that's not exactly setting the bar very high. These two named the Firestorm effect. But this year's all about time travel with flashes, so let's throw this up here and talk about it in detail. So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time. I'll try not to throw too many spoilers about other shows in, but just in case, consider this a fair warning. Let's get started with the setting. This is a time travel show that takes place in the DC universe that's centered around the CW, affectionately known as the Berlantiverse. It's the world that started with Arrow and went to Flash, and the one that Supergirl is parallel to. The setting is also the Wave Rider. No, not the character, the ship that's named after the character. The Wave Rider is how they transport through time, and as such is where most of the setting takes place. Obviously, a time period doesn't work for setting in this. So let's go on to characters. Well, we have the title characters, the legends themselves, and then we have the ship. Now, remember I said it's called the Wave Rider? Well, the AI in charge of it is Gideon. Kind of confusing because Gideon was created by Flash. You know what? We're skipping Gideon. The new characters this season are Citizen Steel, who is the descendant of a member of the Justice Society, gets his powers partway through the season along with his superhero suit, and Vixen, a member of the Justice Society, who stows away because of stuff goes on. Returning from last year was the Atom, Firestorm, Heatwave, and White Canary. Heatwave definitely steals the show, but we'll get back to that. The Atom mostly is played for comic relief, White Canary's the new captain, and the two parts of Firestorm, well, Martin Stein always steals the show. And those are the heroes, the main legends. But of course, heroes are only as good as their villains. And this year we have the Legion of Doom, including Captain Cold, who was a legend last season. Now, because this is a time travel show, that gets very confusing. But that in turn brings us into the plot. So whether the plot is linear or non-linear is hard enough to say in any time travel show. But since I just did this whole big time travel theory over on The Flash, I want to point out that I will not be trying to reconstruct the timelines and legends. That's just impossible. They change too much too fast. But on that video, I came up with something that I realized. Speed Force time travel and Wave Rider time travel work on different principles, and they do that very well in this show, because Thrawn doesn't follow what the Wave Rider does for rules, and as such we have a Black Flash chasing him. Now, the overall plot is about the Spear of Destiny, and it's a pretty good story, although I did feel it let us down in a couple places. At the end I'll cover that. But overall, the timeline moved forward for our main characters the whole time, so I'm going to go with linear as any time travel show gets to. But that brings us to whose point of view were we following? This show does an amazingly good job of rotating whose point of view it is from episode to episode. We even have a couple where it's from the point of view of the villains. So in general, it's everyone's point of view. But then the thesis dissertation, themes and symbolism. One of the reoccurring questions asked throughout the season is, what would you do for someone you love? What would you change? What would you risk? And in the end, Sarah has to answer that the last time. But we have a couple of characters that had to ask it as each episode went through. We also had to ask, who can you trust and who are your friends? And there's a really great moment between Heatwave and the Atom and Captain Cold that really dictate exactly how much that means to them. And the question comes up a lot about what it means to be a hero. We often hear that the legends are stupid, or that the legends make stupid mistakes, and while they do, if ever there was an idiot ball example, it was probably on this show. But at the same time, the legends are trying their best to help people. And that's where this secondary theme really gets interesting. Is Thrawn wrong? Reverse Flash just wants to live. Now, yeah, he wants to live and be in control and is power mad, but realistically, he's fighting for his life. But that's a great transition into opinion mode. And with that, we're going to start with the good. And of course, the best way to make good heroes is to have good villains, and the Legion of Doom was probably one of the best sets of villains they had, all charismatic and great. I'm especially going to call out the humanization of Reverse Flash. That was great. I'm also going to say that the entire plotline of Stein having a daughter, great, and the introduction and use of the Justice Society, great. However, both of those also are going to get the bad, because you see, the bad part about Professor Stein's story is the fact that they don't really address exactly how much of a change that is. And the bad part of the Justice Society is the complete lack of most of the Justice Society. They played an important role, but at every turn I kept hoping to see more of them. And not only did we not, but Rex Tyler, our man, died without ever using Mirakuru, which we've seen in Arrow. And then we have the ugly. And yes, it's a CW show, so no one's really ugly. The ugly for this is the big logic flaw with the Spear of Destiny, and it's something that could have been fixed by using the Spear. But you see, by the end of the season, the bad guys have won. They used the Spear, they rewrote reality, and then they destroy the Spear so it can't be used again. The heroes realize time travel's the option, because, well, it's a time travel show, but they travel back to before the reality was changed. And I think that if the Spear was actually changing reality, and correct me if I'm wrong here, wouldn't that mean that there was never that moment before? As such, you can't travel back to it without traveling to an alternate timeline? That was most of my thoughts about Legends of Tomorrow. Overall, I did enjoy the show, and I am looking forward to the next season, which has already been approved. I am curious to see where they go with the fact that Rip is again not a main character, but let me know what you think down in the comments. In the meantime, if you liked this video, please hit that thumbs up button, and of course share it with your friends and family, because I could use the subscribers. I'm trying to build a community here as we take a look at all of the stories, and especially the superhero ones and time travel ones. So, let me know what you think, and help me build a viewing base. In the meantime, I hope you have a good night, and thank you for walking with me through the heart of the stories we tell. Have a good night.